Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. When you sent over all this research on mindfulness and metacognition, I thought to myself, are we going to get too zen? And this is so cool. It turns out these two ideas, they just keep popping up together everywhere. I mean, we're talking academic papers, books on leadership and education. There's even this model for mindfulness built on 8 different metacognitive pillars.
What gets me is the definitions, they sound so simple, right? Mindfulness.
Yeah.
Being present.
Yeah.
Right here, right now.
And metacognition.
Thinking about thinking.
Yeah.
But those definitions, just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay, I am loving this iceberg analogy. So unpack it for us. How do mindfulness and metacognition actually work, at a deeper level?
Okay, so imagine this. Your consciousness is an iceberg. Mindfulness. That's focusing on the tip you can see what you're experiencing right now without getting pulled under by judgments or distractions, but below the surface. In those deep hidden parts, that's where metacognition kicks in. We're talking about fringe consciousness, these subtle feelings and knowings that shape our thoughts, and those executive functions, our brain's control center for decisions and plans.
Okay, so mindfulness is being present, and metacognition is understanding the why and how of our thoughts. And one thing I'm picking up from all this research is mindfulness. It's not just for meditation retreats anymore. We're seeing it applied to education, leadership training, even musicians using it to beat stage fright.
It's amazing how much mindfulness is being recognized now for what it can do, beyond just meditation. It's about emotional regulation, self-awareness. Studies are showing it can even impact our stress hormones, which leads to being more emotionally stable.
Wow, that's huge.
There was this one study that found mindfulness training actually helped musicians improve their memory, how well they could remember things.
Really?
And they think it's because there was less performance anxiety, so they could focus better.
That makes a lot of sense. If you can quiet all that noise in your head and just zero in on what you're doing, of course you're going to learn and remember things better. It's like mindfulness clears the way for your brain to work its best. Okay, so shifting gears a bit here to metacognition. Can you talk about this idea of it being our brain's CEO? What does that actually look like when we're, just living our lives?
Totally. So picture metacognition as the executive function of your mind. It's in charge of keeping tabs on your thoughts, seeing how well you understand things, and making the big decisions about how you learn and solve problems. We're talking multiple levels of awareness, right?
Wow.
It can be as simple as knowing what you know, basically, self-evaluation, or as complex as strategizing how to solve a problem, which takes a much deeper level of awareness.
Okay, so it's not just about thinking, it's about being aware of how you think, right? Recognizing what you don't know, and then figuring out how to approach learning those things. I mean, that sounds like something we should all be doing, but I can totally see how most people just kind of go through their day without really tapping into that. Which brings us to what I think is the most mind-blowing part of this whole thing. Some of the research you sent, it suggests that mindfulness, especially at those advanced levels, it might actually be a form of high-level metacognition.
A really interesting concept, yeah. There was one study. They found that people who were really good at being mindful, they were less likely to have their minds wander, which suggests they had a better handle on their own thought processes. It kind of challenges how we've always thought about mindfulness, it's just this relaxation technique. Instead, it's mindfulness is this powerful tool we can use to shape and direct our attention. And it all comes down to having better metacognitive control.
So by practicing being present, we might actually be making those executive functions stronger, becoming more metacognitively aware in everything we do. That's incredible.
It really highlights how connected all of our mental processes are. Mindfulness isn't just about finding peace. It can be a way to make our thinking better.
Those are such great questions. And I think it's they get to the heart of why this whole thing feels important. We're living in this world. It's just constantly demanding our attention. And it's easy to just feel like we're being swept along by the current. You know what I mean? When do we ever actually stop and think about how we're thinking?
Exactly. And that's where this whole mindfulness metacognition combo comes in, right? When we make that space to be present through mindfulness, we're actually creating this opportunity to observe those metacognitive processes. It's like we can finally tune in to that fringe consciousness and start to get how those executive functions are really shaping our whole experience.
Okay, more about that fringe consciousness, please. You've mentioned it a couple times, and I gotta say it's a very cool term. What is it exactly, and how does it fit in with all of this?
Okay, so think of it like this. Fringe consciousness is that subtle hum of awareness, It's those feelings of knowing, those hunches, the intuitions, the stuff that's often happening below the level of our actual thoughts. Like it's that tip my tongue feeling, or when something feels familiar but you can't quite place it. It's subtle, but always there, shaping our thoughts and decisions, often without us even realizing it.
So it's like those whispers of information that we pick up on but don't always consciously process.
Hmm.
I can see how practicing mindfulness, quieting all the mental chatter, might actually make us more tuned in to those fringe feelings.
Totally. Mindfulness helps us tune into those subtle signals coming from our fringe consciousness, and that's the metacognition connection. When we become aware of these feelings, then we can start to see how they're impacting our thoughts, our decisions, even our creative process.
So we're not just reacting to these feelings, but we're actually understanding how they fit into the bigger picture of how our minds work. It's like we're developing a deeper understanding of our own internal operating system, right?
Exactly. It's about shining a light on those shadowy, often ignored parts of our mental experience. And the cool thing is, with practice, this awareness, it can become a powerful tool for all sorts of things. Navigating tough situations, making better decisions, even tapping into our creativity in new ways.
Now we're talking. It sounds almost like mindfulness gives us access to this hidden wellspring of creativity, all those intuitive insights and connections that usually get drowned out by the everyday. Is that too out there?
Not at all. Think about it. When we're truly present, completely absorbed in something, that's when we're most likely to tap into those intuitive insights, to make those surprising connections, those aha moments, right?
That makes a lot of sense. So we've talked a lot about the good stuff, the potential of mindfulness and metacognition, but are there downsides? Are there challenges that come with becoming more aware of your own mind?
That's an important question. And like any powerful tool, mindfulness and metacognition, they can be misused. For example, you could get too focused on monitoring your thoughts and end up actually making your anxieties worse or getting trapped in overthinking. It's a balancing act.
So like anything, moderation is key, right? It's not about becoming like hyper aware of every single thought. It's about cultivating a healthy level of awareness where you can observe, you can understand your mental processes, but not get lost in them.
You got it. And that's where acceptance comes in. That idea that's so central to a lot of mindfulness practices is about recognizing that our thoughts and feelings, they're temporary, like clouds passing by. We don't have to get caught up in each and every one.
It's about becoming a mindful observer of your own mind, acknowledging those thoughts and feelings, but without judging them, without getting attached, just letting them float by.
Exactly. And when we cultivate that non-judgmental awareness, that's when we make space for better responses to challenges, more intentional choices, and ultimately a more fulfilling life.
So mindfulness and metacognition, they're not just about like thinking better, it's about feeling better too, right? It's a holistic approach to growth, which I love.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that our thoughts, feelings, and actions, they're all connected. And the more we understand how those elements work together, the better we understand our own experiences.
Now, one of the things you sent me mentioned a metacognitions questionnaire, the MCQ. What is that? And how does it help us understand this link between mindfulness and metacognition?
Oh, the MCQ, that's a fascinating tool. Researchers use it to measure something called dysfunctional metacognitions. Basically, these are beliefs and thinking patterns that can contribute to anxiety, depression, those kinds of mental health challenges. They're like those negative thought loops that can really get us stuck.
So it's a way to pinpoint those unhelpful thinking patterns that might be holding us back.
Exactly. And here's what's really interesting. Research using the MCQ has shown a strong connection between mindfulness and lower scores on those dysfunctional metacognitions. So basically, it suggests that mindfulness might help us break free from those negative thought patterns by building that same detached, non-judgmental awareness we were just talking about.
It's like mindfulness gives us a little buffer between our thoughts and our reactions, so we can actually choose how we respond, rather than just being ruled by our emotions, right?
It's a powerful shift, and it gets to the core of both mindfulness and metacognition, that ability to observe without being consumed by our thoughts and feelings.
Now, you also sent something about mindfulness and memory. Tell me more about that.
This is some really cool research. It seems like mindfulness training might actually improve how our memory works. One study found that even just a little bit of mindfulness meditation, they did it for 2 weeks, and it led to improvements in both working memory, like what you hold in your mind right now, and long-term memory, remembering things from the past.
So it's not just about being present, it's about boosting our ability to learn and remember new stuff. I love that.
Totally. We think this works because mindfulness helps us focus our attention better and reduces mind wandering. So by developing that stronger, more stable attention, we're just better equipped to really get that information into our memory and then pull it back out later.
Makes sense. If your mind is all over the place or you're constantly getting distracted, of course it's harder to learn. Mindfulness creates that mental space for learning and remembering to actually happen.
Right. And the implications are huge for
It's all-
education, professional development, even personal growth. Imagine if we could all train our minds to be more focused, more receptive to learning new things.
Okay, last question before we move on, I promise. You keep mentioning all these different sides of mindfulness, and one of the things you sent over talked about a 5-facet mindfulness questionnaire, the FFMQ, right? Can you walk us through those 5 facets and how they connect to metacognition?
The FFMQ, I love this one because it shows us that mindfulness isn't just one thing. It's this whole set of skills and qualities that work together. It breaks it down into 5 core facets: observing, describing, acting with awareness, non-judging of what's happening inside, and not overreacting to what's happening inside.
Right.
Each one of these plays a role in our ability to be present and aware.
Okay, unpack those for me one by one. How do they connect to metacognition?
So, observing, that's the ability to notice your thoughts, feelings, sensations as they pop up without getting swept away. It's about acknowledging they're there, but not judging them. This directly connects to metacognitive awareness, that skill of stepping back and watching our own mental processes in action.
And then there's describing, being able to put those observations into words, which I'm guessing also strengthens metacognition. By putting language to it, we're making those mental processes more concrete, right?
Exactly. Describing our experiences gives us a deeper understanding of how our minds work, how our thoughts and feelings actually shape our behavior.
Okay, what about acting with awareness? That seems key for taking all this out of our heads and into the real world.
Totally. It's not enough to just think about our thinking. We got to use that awareness to make choices, take action. This is about bringing mindfulness into everyday life, how we interact with others, how we approach our work, all of it.
So it's about being present and engaged rather than just going through the motions. I can see how that'd be powerful. What about the last two, non-judging of inner experience and non-reactivity to inner experience? Those seem especially relevant when we're trying to become more aware of our thoughts and feelings.
For sure. These two are all about building a healthy relationship with your own mind. Non-judging means recognizing that our thoughts and feelings, even the bad ones, are just that.
Yeah.
Thoughts and feelings. They're not inherently good or bad, they just are.
Yeah.
This lets us observe them without all that self-criticism.
And non-reactivity is about creating space between the thought or feeling and how we react to it, right?
Yeah.
Choosing how we want to respond.
Exactly. We always have a choice. We can react automatically, or we can hit pause, observe, and choose a better response.
So basically, the FFMQ shows us that mindfulness has all these different angles, and each one contributes to a deeper understanding of our own minds. That awareness then empowers us to make better choices in our lives.
It's like an invitation to become more conscious architects of our own experience.
Now, I'm curious about the practical side of all this. If someone's listening and wants to work on their mindfulness and metacognition, where do they even begin?
That's the big question, and one we'll dig into more in the next segment. There are so many ways to cultivate mindfulness and metacognition, from formal meditation to just bringing more awareness into our everyday lives.
All right, so we've talked about how awesome mindfulness and metacognition are, like these secret weapons for personal and professional growth. But how do we actually make them a part of our lives, especially when things get crazy busy and our minds are already like running a marathon?
You're right, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. The key is to start small. Focus on building habits that actually stick. One of the easiest ways to start is mindfulness meditation. Even just a few minutes a day, focusing on your breath, that can make a huge difference.
A few minutes, even with a packed schedule, I think most people can swing that. Any resources you recommend for getting started with meditation?
Absolutely. There are some really great apps out there like Headspace, Calm. They've got guided meditations for everyone, whether you're brand new or you've been meditating for years. And if apps aren't your thing, there are tons of books, online courses, all sorts of things.
So many options. It's really about finding what works for you. Now, what about metacognition? Are there like specific exercises we can do to strengthen those executive functions, become more aware of our thinking?
Definitely. One technique I really like is reflective journaling. So after something challenging or a learning experience, take some time to just think about how you thought through it. Ask yourself, what did I notice about my thinking? What assumptions was I making? What strategies worked? What could I have done differently?
You're becoming your own thought detective, analyzing those patterns, looking for clues on how to improve.
Exactly. Another good one is think alouds. While you're actually trying to solve a problem, try saying your thought process out loud. It can help you catch those mental roadblocks, those biases that might be tripping you up.
So it's about getting those thoughts out of your head, giving them some space so you can see them more clearly, like giving your inner CEO a chance to, step back, assess the situation.
Yes. And don't underestimate just asking yourself why more often. When you notice a thought, a feeling, a reaction, just pause and ask, why am I thinking or feeling this? What's behind this?
That curiosity about our own minds, instead of just accepting those thoughts and feelings, we're digging deeper.
And as we understand those underlying causes better, we feel more in control. We can make more conscious choices about how we respond to challenges, how we navigate life's ups and downs.
Speaking of conscious choices, one of the things you sent mentioned mindful meta-awareness. Can you break that down for us? How does that fit in?
Mindful meta-awareness, I love this one. It basically combines the best of mindfulness and metacognition. It's about being able to observe our thoughts and feelings with that same non-judgmental awareness we bring to, say, our breath or our body when we meditate.
Like expanding that mindful attention to our entire inner world, noticing those thoughts and feelings, but not getting carried away by them.
Exactly. And when we practice this, we start to see our thoughts as just that mental events, not necessarily truths. We realize they're often fleeting, influenced by our mood, our past, all sorts of things. They're not always accurate reflections of reality.
It's like we learn to not take our thoughts so seriously.
And that can be so freeing. It frees us from being ruled by our minds. We can choose how we want to respond, how we make decisions. We're not at the mercy of every single thought or emotion anymore.
We take back our power. We become the master of our minds, not the other way around.
Yes, it's about creating a more balanced, harmonious relationship with that inner world. We can use the power of our minds, but also recognize their limits.
Now for a final thought-provoking question. If we practice mindfulness and metacognition regularly, could it actually change our brains, like physically?
Researchers are definitely looking into that, and this idea of neuroplasticity, how our brains can actually rewire themselves based on our experiences, it suggests it's possible.
So like exercise strengthens our muscles, mindfulness and metacognition could actually strengthen certain parts of our brains.
The evidence is growing. Some studies have shown that people who meditate a lot, they have greater gray matter density in areas of the brain that deal with attention, emotional control, self-awareness.
Wow, so by training our minds to be more present, more aware, we might actually be rewiring them for better focus, more resilience, greater well-being. What an amazing thought to end on.
It really shows how powerful these practices can be. And as we keep exploring this connection between mindfulness and metacognition, remember, it's a journey. The more we understand how our minds work, the more empowered we become to shape our experiences.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the incredible world of mindfulness and metacognition. We hope this has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to start your own journey of self-discovery. Until next time, stay curious.
Thank you for watching and listening. We hope you found your inner peace with our podcast. Keep yourself updated and join us on our next episode. Stay safe and healthy, and have a good day. See you soon.